Hello, Ellen Geer. You are the producing artistic director of Theatricum Botanicum, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. And we were saying before we started rolling how miraculous that is. How miraculous does it feel to you?
It's beyond, as Rosalind would say, and as you like it. It's beyond. To to have been able to keep something like this that is not your big corporate theater, and it's not community theater. It's a theater where we have education is equal to our core, which is our repertoire company, and that our actors are the teachers that educate the next generation. And so it's just a way of passing on the true deep meaning of theater in a community.
Right. Now, I don't know if you're a particularly spiritual person,
Well,
but I do know that both your parents' ashes are scattered on the grounds at Theatricum Botanicum. And I'm wondering, do you feel their presence with you as you launch season after season, and in particular as you launch this golden anniversary?
well, they're in your cells. Sometimes young people like to deny that. Maybe they didn't get along with them well, but my parents are very deep in my cells. And actually, Pop probably would have said, he said, I'm going to be good compost, and then we followed suit with Mama, and they both have trees over them, and they're there.
For people who don't know, Will Geer, who is best known for the Waltons, is your father, and Herta Ware is your mother, who, at least for my generation, I know her best from Cocoon.
You're right.
So we'll talk about them a little bit more as we go on. But I remember a long time ago, a publicist once telling me that when you do an interview for a project for an actor, it's not about that job, it's about getting the next job. And as you're celebrating this 50th season, what does this season tell us, not just about where Theatricum Botanicum is today,
Mhm.
but also what its future might hold?
Oh, that's the big thing. And that's the big thing. We just had a board meeting last night. That's a big thing that we're all talking about because it's evolving. My daughter Willow has stepped forward like I can't believe, and she's my associate producing artistic director. And my nephews, who have been in Europe for years as musicians, now want to be more involved. And always in an organization like this, it's how you can make a living and yet do this heart thing, because it is a heart thing, to do theater like this. People don't make a lot of money in theater unless you're doing the big musicals and are on Broadway and all that. You have to have a deep passion to do this. So I see the future very clearly. With my family still seems to be the core, and we're fourth generation on those boards. My granddaughter's going to do the young Queen Elizabeth today in our history compilation, so that's good.
It is. There are a lot of people who have told me that theater is just in their blood and there's no way they can imagine doing anything else. But there is a trade-off for that. I mean, it is not the most lucrative career one can have, but everybody with whom I've spoken says it's certainly one of the most fulfilling, if not the most fulfilling.
Well, it is, and it's also happened to musicians, and the musicians, it's deep in their heart to write songs or to do compose things. It's not the climate in America for them to make money now. So I know part of our education, as we encourage artists, not to give up because they can't make the money, but how to find other ways of bringing in money. You've got to have another gig. Uh, During this period of time in our country. You really do. And that's one of the reasons we started here, because you can go make a bunch of money, on a couple of days on a TV show. You can do all that. And yet you could still come out on the weekend and do Shakespeare and do the deep root acting that actors love.
Absolutely. And for people who don't know, and I hope my research is correct, but
Okay.
but isn't some of the wood for your stage from the Santa Monica Pier when it collapsed in 1983?
Oh, yes. There was this wonderful man who got most of it way on top of the canyon, and we were working in the mud. you know, because it gets rainy sometimes in May and just before you open. And he gave us this wood, and the fathers, more or less, the fathers of the canyon helped build that stage. Wonderful architect named Oscar McGraw came in and said, "I'll help you guys out. We need you." So the community has been very supportive of us over the years with our ups and downs.
Which is important for you to survive both the highs and the lows, right?
That's right. That's right. You know, we serve. We have, you know, that's what theater does. It serves, and we have camps. We have, you know, kids who start. I mean, let's face it. My own daughter, who now will probably end up running the joint, she started as a kid. Do you know? When my mother was playing the first fairy, the other daughter was in her arms. We just put her in the production, you know. So and people who are like our Macbeth, he just had a baby 3 days ago, and so we've had to replace him over this period of time. And but that was all set up from the beginning because it's the emotional content of how you want to live has to be within an organization. Otherwise, you know, you're always looking for the higher buck or the better place or complaining. You know, you've got to be in a place that spiritually, you use the word, um, gives you something in life to care deeply about.
And I'm going to assume that you are in your home and not in a theater, otherwise you would have never referenced that play by its name.
Yeah, right.
I read a lovely interview you did with Stephen Lee Morris for American Theater Magazine in 2016.
Oh,
And you
good.
said, you don't teach by preaching, you teach by the way you live your life. What stands out to you most about what you've learned from the way the people around you live their lives in the theater?
It's team. It's working together. And it's all right if it's not the greatest thing since sliced bread. If it has developed somebody to a certain place, you know, it's like sometimes when I'm thinking about a season, I'll look at our actors and say, "Oh God, that guy or that gal is ready for this." You know, it's but you can't do that if you just have, we always have casting calls, but when you have a company, you begin to invest your care about them, and it becomes part of your life, like they've become part of your life, and you care about their next steps, you know. Are they dating? I mean, all that's a part of it. You know, what happened to them during COVID? What happened to them? Oh, there's something that's going on with that person. How can we help? That's all a part of living, isn't it?
Mhm. Absolutely. And
Right.
also the whatever happens in any given day is going to be that intangible thing that finds its way somehow into a performance. You don't know how it's going to manifest itself, but it does find its way into a performance, doesn't it?
It does, and you know, and especially with young people, they haven't lived and had some of the hard knocks and the good knocks, all the things that happen. Been through a bunch of relationships that are great or they fail, or jobs that are great or they fail. They haven't been there yet, so you know. As you get older, I don't know if it is with you, you know, there's a marvelous thing of sitting back and saying, "Oh my God, that's what's happening to them. Oh, how can I help?" You know,
Or
just
what's
to
the
kind of
advantage?
get through it.
Or what's the advantage of not helping them so that they can learn
Right,
that
right.
way as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. Keep your hands off. Absolutely.
Now, you've referenced Shakespeare several times, and there is a fabulous volume of Shakespeare over your shoulder on your bookcase that I noticed.
Oh, oh, that God, I didn't set that up.
Well, it's perfect. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. A Midsummer Night's Dream is the signature production at Theatricum Botanicum.
Yeah,
What are the challenges of making the play not just fresh for your audiences, but also fresh for the company?
that is the play. If I pull it out of the season, everybody gets upset in the audience, which is the most thing. That is the play where you bring in young performers out of college or out of high school because they're all young, wonderful, vibrant parts, and it's magical. So it isn't as deep in the rhetoric. You know, it's all mostly four beats. So it it's the perfect learning place for a audience who's never seen Shakespeare, for young people who are striving to encompass it within their acting, you know, realm. It's just perfect. Uh, and then of course you've always got young people in that who, the fairies. So you can get your fairies from the community, and then the parents come, and then what you often find is people who've been the one gal who was our educational director for years. She was kind of like, I don't remember what happened when everybody, or they're still doing purple now, but it was very dark, a lot of pot and dark. And she saw our production, and then she said, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so she went through her whole schooling and came to us and said, I want to be a part of you. And it's because she saw that performance. Those are the gifts that you get when you hang in there for a long time working on something.
Earlier I guess this spring, I saw an interactive production of The Tempest, where you were greeted by sailors who brought you onto the ship.
Yeah.
Ostensibly, it's just a room, but they created the storm, they created all these things, so that by the time you got to the island, it felt like you were one of the shipwrecked people as well.
Lovely. That's lovely.
Which is a wonderful idea. And I interviewed one of the creators of that, and I said, is this what the future of Shakespeare is? Is this the future of theater, to make it truly interactive? And he said, no, because nothing's ever going to replace just doing the play. But this is a way of perhaps increasing the audience or the interest in it by doing it that way. Yeah. What is your thought process about what might be the right thing for your theater company to do to increase the audience and the interest in Shakespeare?
Well, last year, because we're going through this thing finally, but we do every 10, 15 years or so with the diversity. And we had a wonderful production called Trouble in Mind, and it was written by a woman from South Carolina, and it brought in all of the Black audience that we'd never had before. And it was a very important piece for us. That's how we try and engage. This year, it's cultural. This is the time of cultural blending. It has to be. I think that's what's going to help us all, because we're a melting pot. Whether people like it or not, we're a melting pot. We're all different from different nations. And so that this year, what we're doing is A Perfect Ganesh, which was written by a brilliant playwright, Terrence McNally. And we're going to be bringing India, bringing in some of their dance and some of their food. And we like doing things like that. We did it with Haiti, which is a production we did. Again, we had the Haitian clothes and knickknacks and food. That's how we do it.
You brought up A Perfect Ganesh, and there's a couple lines in A Perfect Ganesh that I really love. It's, where one of the women, prays to open her heart to India. And she says, let me experience fully these people who are so different from me. Let me be part of this fabric, not to disappear into it, not to become them, but be with them.
Yeah.
How does Theatricum Botanicum allow you to let your heart expand?
Oh, because you're telling these incredible stories, I mean, when you're an actor, you suck in the character, and it becomes, I think characters, even whether they're bad or whether they're good or whether they're ridiculous or it's a comedy, farce, doesn't matter what, you have to become them in order to portray them and share them with this audience. I mean, that's our job.
It is, absolutely. It is. And I know there's a lot of conversation about having lived in experiences to be able to play a character. And I sort of feel like that flies in the face of what good acting is. That you should be able, it doesn't mean that you can relate fully to that person, but you can at least for that period of time enter that person's shoes. Isn't that what acting is?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's the imagination. If you haven't if you're playing a part where a woman has a baby and this person never had a baby, you do your research. You talk to people. You find out. That's what acting is. The research part of it in the beginning is so exciting for actors.
There's a lot of conversation about what's appropriate, what isn't appropriate, what's acceptable. You see there's more and more censorship, encroaching its way into our civilization today.
Mm.
Is theater in and of itself a political act, in your view?
Well, I think isn't life political? I mean, political. But I the only time I get upset with that word when they start using when the government starts using the word theater when they're talking about war and everything else. I say, well, it's part of life. Yeah, it is. We're part of the politics of the world. We are theater because you're telling the stories of what can happen, what might happen, what is happening. Mm. And then, of course, you've got your other kind of theater, which is da 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 da. Do you know that? So it's everybody feels good and it's all okay, and you can go home and have your ice cream, and that's needed too. That's needed too by human beings, you know. So these are the choices you make.
Well, one of the choices that I'm most intrigued by in this season is Queen Margaret's version of Shakespeare's War of the Roses.
We're in the middle of it. Ooh, yeah.
What was the inspiration for that? Because I feel like if we're looking at a woman's view of the War of the Roses, I can't help but think that there's some kind of commentary on the role of women in history and the role of women today.
And the role of women in theater, because you know these histories aren't done. They really aren't done, and there's some brilliant writing in them. And Queen Margaret happens to be a person who goes through Henry VI, Part One, Two, Three, and Richard III. Then she says, "Oh, you guys are stupid, and I'm leaving. I'm going back to France." And I always find that fascinating. You know, how, that character, the warrior. She was a warrior. She was a mother. You know, she was a lover. She was all these things. And so looking at those histories, I got excited about all the women because very often, if somebody does one of them, very often they cut the women's parts. You know, oh no, we can't do that Queen Elizabeth scene. It's just too long, and it's the end of the play, and you know people can't take it, and all this stuff goes into putting on a history play. Uh, so I start with Joan La Puce with Margaret voiceover, and then Joan La Pucelle. She was the first one, you know, and then Margaret, and then you've got the Duchess, you've got Queen Elizabeth, you've got Eleanor, wonderful women, and for the most part, we do their scenes fully, and it's turned out to be almost look what happens when you have the elite of the world governing and deciding how they're going to run a country. Oh, the commoners, go away. You're bothering me. I want this. I want to get this. It's very like our government today.
Or
It's
like the way celebrities function in social media.
or absolutely that top dogs. There's this, you know, and we've always had trouble with that. The upper class, lower class, lower class. It I just, you know, I haven't got tons and tons of time left on this world, so all I can think of doing now is, can we just blend? Can we see how wonderful everybody is, all the different cultures of religions, everything, and be proud of them, and blend and not this power thing is very upsetting. I mean, it's so anyway, that's one of the reasons I did this play, and why that's political to me is because how can people realize that we are continuing the same thing over and over and over again? When are we going to get to the point where we're going to say, cut it out? You know, when are we going to see a kid is in trouble taking drugs and say to them, go lock yourself in the closet, you're not coming out till you stop? When are we going to get to that point where we stop this? It's tomfoolery, isn't
It is.
it?
It is. It is. I have to say, I just turned 62. I guess I'll just own it. I just turned 62 last week.
That's
And it's
wonderful.
like I'm starting to not recognize the country I live in.
Oh, I know people will come up and say, "Oh, we've been through this before. We've been through." I said, "No, no, no, no. You haven't been through what's going on now before. This is extraordinary."
It is.
And yeah, and so we older types have to help the younger people feel, come on, guys, it's up to you now. You
Well,
gotta fix it.
in conversations I've had with friends of mine who are around much younger people than I traditionally find myself, say they are very encouraged because they all realize that it is finally incumbent upon them
Yeah,
to clean up the mess that we've all left
that
behind.
we've left behind. have allowed to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's the wonderful thing about theater is that it forces us to confront, all these ideas and these life experiences so that we have compassion for that. But I have to imagine that running theater today is massively different than it was even 5 years ago, let alone 25 years ago.
Yeah. I began when nonprofit corporate theater started. I mean, I was there before that, so I know what just that aspect of nonprofit corporate theater can do to theaters and how you keep it real and serving the people that are around you. We now have streaming, we have all these different things that are confronting us. But let's go back to the mummers. Let's go back to the mummers. You just got some working person, they get together and they put on a play, and it makes everybody feel good in the community. And that deep part of theater, it, it, that's what we have to keep. You're not going to get it on the screen.
And you're certainly not going to get it on one of these.
No, what you're going to get on one of these is bad posture.
There is absolute truth to that. Well,
We'll own it one day. We'll own this one day. We'll, right now, it's telling us what to do. Human beings are so brilliant, they'll get to the point where they will control this.
I hope we both live long enough to see that happen. I read through the mission statement that Theatricum Botanicum has, and one part of it says, by passing on a sense of history to young people and adults alike, great works of art inform their present and inspire their future. Now, because of these very same devices that we were just speaking about, we have a whole generation of people who feel like 15-second TikTok videos is about as much as their attention span can allow.
I know.
And that an ever-growing number of younger people are apathetic to things that happened before they were born, as if they are not important. Is there a way to overcome that?
Well, that's what, this program we have, and actually it's the thing, because corporations love to sponsor education and buildings and science, maybe. We started school days, and it's our signature program. And we serve up to 300 kids every day through the month of May and through September. And it's changed from just a white audience, young kids, with the plaid skirts and all that. Now it's totally mixed. We have every nation comes to these plays. So I feel that's what theater can do. They experience what it is to have that kind of relationship with a story, with lots of other young people around. You have to train them not to whisper to each other. That's all a part of it. And it's a formality that's so important that you don't get with a TV. I want my popcorn now, Mom, and they missed half the story. I wish I had that word at the tip of my tongue. There's a dignity, there's a of sitting there and experiencing history or a comedy with other people around you. It's just, you can't beat it.
I absolutely agree. Now, at the beginning of this conversation, I mentioned that I would get back to your parents, and I want to ask you something about your father in particular. Because in doing some research about him prior to our conversation, he was in the first season of the famous Phoenix Theater in New York.
Right.
And he was in 1954, he was in a production of Chekhov's The Seagull that starred Montgomery Clift.
That's right.
And Maureen Stapleton and countless other people.
Yeah.
And I realized there's so much people don't know about Will Geer beyond his television and film roles. Beyond this theater that he co-founded, what is the one thing you wish people knew or understood more about who Will Geer was as a man and as an artist?
Well, that it's what he gave to his family and the people around him, an endless exuberance, optimism about life, and especially watching him when he was crushed by HUAC, how he related to it. he related to it in a way of deep understanding of those people who were rats. Now that was quite something then, because it took sides. Everybody took sides. And he he really, because I mean, we were totally wiped out as a family. We I learned how to steal food because we didn't have any. We, Papa grew most of the food that we ate. We had to kill chickens that we loved, you know, um, to eat. And to see how he went through that and still could encompass why human beings had to take that side. He understood the politics, the horrible politics of it. And he forgave where many people didn't. Many people committed suicide. Many people had anger for the rest of their life. It affected them. It affected their family. It affected their work. But Pop, he was an optimist till the day he died.
And I understand he encouraged you to audition for Elia Kazan.
Oh, yes, he did. Yes, he did. He did. Yes. It was Splendor in the Grass. And I think I've told this story. And then when I went in there with my little picture, I was playing the first fairy in Shakespeare in Stratford, Connecticut. And there were a lot of blacklisted people there because John Houseman, who was not blacklisted, did the most incredible thing of hiring actors who had been through that mess. And so I was there with them. So I went in my little picture and resume and walked in with my skirt and all that. And he opened the door and he read, and then he looked up at me and he got bright red in the face. He backed up, and it's one of those memories that stick, and it helped me. And he sat down and he just looked and he said, "How's your mother and your father?" It was very low. And I thought this was the strangest interview I'd ever been on because it was different for me. I was 17 and I never did audition. I went back and I told my pop ass, said, "Yeah, I ought to go with old Kazan." And Morris Garnofsky, who was sitting next to me, said, Where did she go?" She went to audition for that play, that movie. And then Morris got bright red in the face and so angry at my father, really angry. "You allowed your daughter to, So right there, I was seeing these two reactions, and that's when I learned about how you can be as a human being. Watching my father said, "Well, I mean, he made the choice he had to make. Not everybody can do what you did, Morris, or what I did, more. Not everybody can do that. And it wasn't really all of our faults. It was the government. It was these people, and I learned a lot from that moment.
I think a lot of people can learn from that moment because that is the antithesis of what these polarizing times expect us to do.
Yes. And instead of looking at the whole picture and able to go on at the pendulum, don't worry, it's going to swing. It has to swing.
Absolutely. Well, since I brought up the seagull, I thought it would be only appropriate to end with asking you about something that Chekhov is quoted as having said. And it feels like it so encompasses what you've been able to do with your life, Ellen. He said, "You should feel a flow of joy because you are alive. Your body will feel full of life. That is what you must give from the stage, your life, no less. That is art, to give all you have."
Yeah.
What have you gotten most from Theatricum Botanicum, and what would you like the future to hold for the theater when you're no longer able to be a part of it?
Well, you meet the best people in the world in theater. You just do. I mean, I've been in the secretarial world. I've had to sling hash. I mean, but there's something about the theater. You can create a community, and that community gives to the bigger community. And you can say, "Oh, listen, this is a great part. You go for that part. You're much righter for that for me." It creates an enlargement. We're just little specks on this earth, and the little time that we have, we got to give to each other and serve. The rest is around us: the viciousness, the greed, the power, the bossing young people around and not letting them find themselves. Kids today are so busy with so many lessons. I don't know how they have time to think. Yeah, this is an incredible time.
And what would you like the future to hold for Theatricum Botanicum?
You're trying to keep me on task. Good luck.
I've done this once or twice.
So I hope that it goes on and that the community will still love it, and it'll go on passing on what these wonderful artists know to other people. That's what I hope.
Well, I'm sure it will. And this has been an absolute joy to speak with you.
Oh, great. Good.
Are you all right with my posting this on our YouTube channel?
Whatever you need to do, anything to help us, because the plays are wonderful this year. We've got the Macbeth, which is okay. I'm at home to say thank you. And we've got the Midsummer Night's Dream, and now we're putting up, it's huge, this War of the Roses, you know, and it was a 32, 37-year war. And then the Perfect Ganesh, which is so good. It's bringing a culture that we don't, you know, the Americans are always, where are they going? They're always trying to heal themselves. You know, and then you go to a place like India where these people know what life's about. And it's just interesting to watch these two cultures get together.
Well, I can think of no better place to heal than the theater.
Good for you.